beautiful early November day, and it's not often that you get warm sunny days like this time of year, so I thought I'd make the most of it to blow the cobwebs off the bike. Also use my English Heritage membership, which I haven't been to English Heritage for a little while, a number of months, and I'm paying monthly for it. But I also don't want to go too far today, so I've settled for Kenilworth Castle, where I've been many times before, but I'm just going to go and grab a coffee and come back. And I thought I'd make the theme of my ride and talk today: how can we all get along in peace? Now, there are those of the extreme left who are in favour of complete open borders, like we saw under the Joe Biden regime, where people could just walk across from Mexico, and you had a lot of some genuine economic migrants who had no intention of harming anyone, just wanted to better their lives, maybe fleeing crime and extreme poverty, so you can't blame them. But you also had some very evil people crossing that border, cartel types, and people trafficking going on. Then Trump ended that completely. Well, it's like 100% end to that. And then you get, in the UK as well, whether they're Tories or Labour, they're two cheeks of the same butt. Just let thousands and thousands and thousands of people a week, a thousand a day or something, come on the small boats, and often they're fighting age men with a Stone Age mentality, who believe that they're entitled to rape women and stab people. By the way, we just had another stabbing. I think it was 8 critically injured on a train, which makes me a little nervous because I'm going to take a train journey to London, and I'm also nervous about going to London. It's just becoming very unsafe. So clearly that sort of open border policy isn't working. And then there are those who are concerned about, people in the country who have that mentality of they want to take over and, let's say, enforce Sharia law on the whole of the UK. And it would be completely wrong to say that all Muslims have that mentality. They don't. But they have this long-term goal of maybe breeding out the local English population, whatever that is, because England is very mixture of a lot of things over the centuries. And so there are those that are in fear of us losing our British identity and culture. Now, those people are often labelled extreme far right by the far left, who seems to control the media. But there is a slight concern there, and the way I think of it is this way. Now, in Japan, they've just had a right-wing, shall we say, female politician elected the Prime Minister of Japan. I think she might be the first female Prime Minister, although I'd have to double-check that. But she's right-wing, she's in the Trump camp, and she slammed shut the borders. Now, could be an overreaction, could be that she's going too far. But if you think of Japan, if you had a wide open border policy in Japan, and you let Nigerian Muslims, again, not all Nigerian Muslims are bad, there are some though that like to go around chopping heads off Christians, which is sad, but just open the borders of Japan wide and let every Nigerian Muslim in, and every other type of Muslim, let them in, unrestrained, yeah? Well, before too long, you wouldn't have a Japanese culture left. And surely Japanese culture is something that you'd want to preserve. You don't want to go to Japan and see that all the Shinto temples and everything have been knocked down and mosques been put up in their place, because Muslims like to do that. They like to build their mosques on top of other religious buildings. In Afghanistan they wiped out the Buddhist statues, which is a shame. In Turkey, in Istanbul, which was Constantinople, they built this Sophia, the Hagia Sophia Mosque on top of what was once a grandiose church. I think it might have been the largest church at the time. And I mean, I'm half Turkish, and they're not Christians, they're Muslims, so, you know, I'm not knocking my own race of people there. But that's a fact. That's what the Muslims do. They take over and they make life very difficult for the other religions, although not always. In the past they didn't. In the past, the Muslim world was a safer place for Jews than the Christian world was, if you can believe that. Well, very often it was. Turkey was a safe haven for the Jews. So times have changed. Now you have this Islamic paranoia where they want to take over. Interestingly, there are some countries that resisted Islamic assimilation, and the two main examples that spring to mind would be Spain, which pushed the Muslims out and then purged the country of the Islamic religion, I guess. They did what the Muslims do, force convert everybody back to Catholicism and kick the Jews out at the same time, and that happened to be when my family, my Jewish family, which I'll come on to in a minute, got kicked out of Spain. Ended up in Germany, where 500 years fast forwarded, a lot of them were then gassed to death by Hitler. But so there's Spain that resisted assimilation, and there's also Greece. That's another example that springs to mind, that was under Ottoman control for a long time and yet remained firmly Christian. But in general, if you look at the examples of, say, places like Egypt and Lebanon, within almost living memory, the Christian majority has rapidly declined. It's from Tommy Robinson's trip to Israel videos that I've learned that actually Israel, I think, is the only country in the Middle East where Christianity is growing. So yeah, let's go back to me, because I'm half Turkish. I'm not Muslim. I identify much more with the teachings of Christ than Muhammad. But I'm also a quarter English and a quarter German Jew, because my dad's mum was a German Jew. She fled the Nazis. She came to England and she married a smith who was English. So I'm only a quarter English. So for me to be against immigration would be completely hypocritical. In fact, I wish this country had welcomed more Jews here. Oh, there's some nasty cameras up here. I wish this country had welcomed more Jews here in World War II, and thus more lives would have been saved and our country would have been all the richer, and maybe the Jewish population here wouldn't be in such decline. They're all moving to Israel now because they just feel unsafe here with the rise of the Islamic population. So there's got to be some balance. There has to be some migration, but you've got to bring in the best. Now, back to my question of what does it take for us all to get along in peace? It's a very simple solution. That is, let everybody practice what they want as long as it's not harmful to anyone else. and as long as it's not forced upon anyone else. And I think that's it. That's the simple answer. And if everybody applied that, then multiculturalism would work. The reason multiculturalism has failed is because that's not always applied. And it's summarized in the Bible by what's called the Golden Rule. Do unto others as you want them to do to you. It's the Golden Rule. And if everybody did that, we could all get along in peace. Simple. But going back to another example of a country that I think rather successfully has got the balance between multiculturalism and preserving the local culture, is actually a very Islamic country, Qatar, where I've just come back from, where I was last month. Actually, just a month before last, the end of September. So how does it work there? How do they allow 2 million non-Qataris to live there alongside maybe 400,000 locals without the local culture getting bred out, wiped out, and some other culture taking over? Well, they do pretty much what they do throughout the Gulf states. They do not allow people to get citizenship. They allow you to work there, and you can work there for 20 years, and then once you retire, you have to bugger off home. I think that's basically how it works. So you can live there, but you can't get citizenship. And so maybe that is a good model for the West to follow, you know. Maybe not as strict as that, but maybe make it harder to get citizenship. Maybe that's a solution. But yeah, so there's just a few thoughts on how we can get along better. But there really is a big problem at the moment. I mean, the stabbings is the really sad thing. The guy walking his dog the other day, these people on the train, and I haven't checked the latest on that. Freaking me out a bit. It's making me not want to go on trains anymore. Certainly, if I do get on the train, I'm going to be prepared for the West. You have to be now. I think you've got to have a plan of action for if somebody wields a knife and starts shouting "Allahu Akbar" and stabbing people. You've got to rehearse the scenario in your mind now, and it seems a shame. By the way, countries like Qatar, they do not tolerate those kind of Islamists. In fact, I think they warn the West, don't let these Muslim Brotherhood types into your country and things like that. Anyhow, yeah, I think you have to get rid of anyone who doesn't want to assimilate. Mass deportations, I'm tending to agree, and I think whilst I was at first a little critical also of Israel's response to October 7th, I think the more time goes on, the more I realise that they're the only democracy really in that region. You can't count Turkey. Turkey's a dictatorship. The guy keeps getting re-elected, just like Putin. That's not really democracy, is it? When someone has unlimited terms and can get re-elected time after time after time again. So it's really only Israel that's a democracy in the region, and I think if they caved in to the Islamic demands, it would be disastrous. There would be no more Holy Land, I think. So I don't know, how could they have handled October the 7th differently? That's a difficult question, because at first I thought, well, send in special forces, but I don't know. Difficult one. Watch Tommy Robinson's videos in Israel, they're interesting. I'm not seeing so many English flags, although I did see quite a few yesterday, but not so much down here. I think the councils are pulling them down now. Although I am seeing a lot more speed cameras everywhere, and it's so easy to get caught out by them if you're not got your wits about you. So we go to Kenilworth Castle. And get a brew. Got about 9 minutes left. I'm gonna see if I can speed past. Maybe not. This is a much nicer. There you go. There's an England flag. There's 2 England flags. I personally don't have a problem with it because it's a working class movement. There's another one. Put a flag up if you want to put a flag up. The problem is the far left is associating it with people wanting Britain to be all white, which is not at all what it is. I think the working class is tired of being dumped on by the elites, of being kept in poverty whilst the hotels are filled up with hundreds and thousands of people who want to go around raping and stabbing. Not all of them, but a big enough proportion for it to be, I think, a national security emergency. So you pay for people to rape and stab your own population, and you let your own population just you tax them more, and just they're suffering. So that's what it is. It's not a white supremacist thing. It's a working class thing. The right has become the new left, I think. The left is out of touch with the working class completely. They just want their Agenda 2030. They want to force vaccinate you, and they want to impose their climate hoax on you, stop you driving cars and owning houses, bring in the smart cities, and push their woke agenda. That has nothing to do with listening to the concerns of the working men and women. Interesting times we live in. 7 minutes away now.